Okay, welcome everybody. This is Keith with How to Build Your Own Home weekly live chat. I have a really interesting story that I want to kind of start you off with. And when you know that a principle is the right principle, and then you make a decision because you got the impression or seduced or, or I don't want to say conned, I just say persuaded to go a different direction. And I've learned this over and over again. When, for example, when you have like an NBA team and it didn't come close to even getting into the finals at all, you're like last in place. You were obviously reworking your team by the end of the year, and the summer comes around, and can't wait for the draft. We got to get some new people, and you change things up. Well, even if you're the best team or the worst team in the league, when the season ends, you're going to look for some weak links. You're going to look for, oh my gosh, what can we do to improve our team? I remember when I was a kid, not a kid, I was younger. I was probably in my late 20s, probably in my mid 30s, in that range. And I used to follow the Utah Jazz. And at that time, the Utah Jazz had the deepest bench of anybody in the NBA, which made them strong. They had just phenomenal bench that could have been a star team itself. And that's why they went several times to the NBA finals until they met Michael Jordan. And that's the same thing with the construction. You're trying to create, I'm speaking from a general contractor's point of view, you're trying to create a deep bench. And that's what I've been kind of on the hustle for over the past 6 months. I've been trying to find 2 and 3 just crackerjack subcontractors in a lot of different areas, from framing, concrete, you name it. And that just makes me stronger, makes me better. Now, as owner builders, you're trying to find that first string. You're trying to find, how can I find the first string that's going to just do me well, that's going to service me? There's 2 principles you really, really want to look at, okay? I had a supplier, I won't mention the supplier, but they were really good by me for many, many years. In fact, I went to the supply house and we were looking at some plans, and we looked at, I couldn't believe all these jobs that I had given them over the years. And I realized it's like 30 jobs, okay, in the past couple of years, 5-10 years. And I realized that I had never had any problems with them, none. And yet I chose a different supply house and headaches up the wazoo, mainly because I could get what I needed to get for much cheaper. And I asked myself, is all the headache I'm kind of going through right now even worth that? And again, it has to do with quality, time, and cost. Every time I put cost at the front and I make that the predominant choice, I tend to eat my shorts. Now, I'm not saying that you can't look for cost, but what I'm saying is that when you're looking for quality, like, for example, I can share this. This is very interesting because we are going to be sponsoring this company in about a week or so. But I went to the 2 biggest suppliers for exterior insulation, okay, which is a mineral wool product. And I reached out to them on their platforms. I subscribed. I made inquiries. After months and months and months, I got nothing back. So I started to reach out and look for other suppliers. Found a supplier in Canada, a manufacturer. They sent me a product sample like that quick. Loved the product sample, and then reached out to them through their marketing division, and voila, I've got an insulation on the exterior of a home that I've got up in the mountains that I'm actually working on right now. If I can show you a picture, it would be really, really cool, but I don't know if I have one. I'll look for it. Maybe I'll find it. Oh, here it is. Right here. So now I've got the exterior of a home. insulated by a company that I'm really happy about. And it goes to really one thing I wanted to share with you. We're all looking for the greatest technology, the greatest product, but sometimes we're not looking for the greatest company. We're not looking for the greatest communication, the greatest feedback, biofeedback, back and forth bidding and estimating and transparency and all that. There's a lot of things into a good company and how well they get back to you. I've gone to companies and I'll say, hey, looking for a bid on this, and I'll get nothing back, nothing at all. And if you're knocking on their door and you're persistent, that may not be the best thing at all. You're looking for someone who's amenable, who's open. Yeah, we're open for business. And there are companies that are really not open for business, even though the door's open. Have you gone into a restaurant and you go in there and they sit you down and you could sit for 20 minutes and nobody says hello to you? Well, they're really not open for business. And do you want that kind of company building your home in any fashion? So the real trick is quality, the quality in communication, quality in the product that they do, the quality in the whole front, beginning and middle and end of the entire process that they go through. I just signed a contract for a job today, and I wanted to make sure that I was there. I followed through. The client had a couple of questions. I answered them real quick. I kind of knew what he was going to ask, and I'm excited because I'll follow through on that job until the end when I'm done. Maybe we'll even do some posts on that. Just really beware of cost as your bottom line. You've got to fit in quality, and you got to fit in the time element as well. When people are prompt and they respond to you and they're quick on that, that to me it's like golden. All right. I just got a text from a subcontractor. He says, hey, I sent the bid out 3 days ago. Did you get it? And my daughter responded back, what was the email? Well, they got some clarity. But the thing is he was tracking us. He was getting in touch with us again to make sure everything's all clear. Communication's just stellar. So quality, time, cost, and quality and time have all those factors of communication, follow through, and all of those factors. Cost is the last thing, and it's in that order, but they're always together. And every time I renege on that, I eat myself. Maybe someday I'll share with what I'm going through. But let's go ahead and start taking some questions here. We got Fritz Prince. That's a cool name. My son would like that. He's got a print shop, Fritz Prince. And my mom called me Fritz when I was a kid. I would love to hear your comments about building with ICF or ICCF. ICF stands for Insulated Concrete Form. And it's kind of a popular thing with DIYers because they can just put it together like Lego blocks. And for that purpose, it's not bad. It's just hard making sure you're square and plumb. That's a different story, and how to make sure that you square things up from corner to corner. I'm just not a fan of it as a builder, mainly because I don't like the polystyrene or the polyiso closed cell foam on the outside of the form. I'd rather see it on the inside of the form. There's some other products that I've been looking at. I'll be sharing with you some of them. One is a manufacturer in Oregon that I really like their product. And I actually met with a client yesterday. She knows who she is. And we'll reach out to them and maybe build a home with their product. It's very similar to Omniblock, but it's lighter weight. And you don't have to insert the insulation. It's already built into the block. And it's dry stack. And that's the appeal of ICF, is that it's basically a dry stack. So you don't have to be a mason. You don't have to have any mortar. You just put them together, put in your rebar. And you have to keep in mind that when you do any of these ICF or ICCF block ready to go forms, you've got to have your inspections properly at the vertical and at the horizontal level. So every 36 or 32 inches, it depends upon the engineer. You've got to have your rebar in there. You pour your concrete have it inspected before you pour your concrete, and you go up another lift, another 2-3 feet, and you get that inspected until you get to the 9 foot or 10 or 12 foot mark. And then you're all good, and you pour your top concrete, and then you put your rebar in there when it's wet, and you put a top laid in there, and you're ready to go, ready to rock and roll. But keeping it flush and plumb is the challenge, and how well those blocks work for that is another story. And then where you start, is your footing perfect? I did it a block with aerated concrete, and again, the ground wasn't level, and it made things difficult as we move forward. And can your concrete person nail that? And can they get the rebar in those pockets just perfectly? Or can you get an ICF person there at the same time they pour the footing? And can they just put their rebar in there when it's wet, just perfectly in line where it needs to be? Or are you going to, if not, you're going to end up bending rebar and making it fit inside that cell. So that's a lot of stuff to swallow, but it could be great, but I'm still not a fan of the foam on the outside. I'd rather have something more rigid than foam. So I know they have the plastic caps in there to help with rigid access and application of whatever material you want on the outside. It just is not good enough for me.
Quit bouncing the table.
Okay, my wife says to stop bouncing on the table. Okay, I'll stop to it. Alex R., can you talk about a retainer with a builder? Yeah, I just did one today, a retainer, but my retainer's not like 50,000 or 25,000. My process is very simple. If a builder's asking for anything more, you've got a problem. I do a retainer on the engineering, architectural, all that, not to pay those things, but I just charge $2,500, and that allows me to act in their name. It allows me to secure all the architectural, structural, geotech, everything I need, because I can't put numbers to a job until I have those items. So it takes me about a month to 2-3 months sometimes, and I secure those. Once I secure those, I put a budget to it, and then I have my client sign the budget. If they don't sign the budget, then my retainer is non-refundable. But if they sign the budget, then that retainer goes toward the actual builder fee that I would apply to the actual build of the home. The reason why I ask for a retainer is because I've gone that distance of a month or 2 or 3 months getting all this stuff done. And then I show it to them and they say, I guess we're not going to build. We decided not to. So I'm out. I put in 80, 120 hours in something, and I don't do that anymore. I don't bid. Somebody asks me to come. I got these things I want to do in my home, or I want an addition, just something small. And I said, no, here's my contract. Here's my retainer. You either want me or you don't want me. I don't allow for tire kickers. People are going to try to browbeat me down. So retainer is there for a reason, to protect all the labor that a builder goes into. But I'm curious as to how much. Like I spoke with some students 3 weeks ago, and they actually gave $140,000 to a builder in advance. Now that's not a retainer. That's robbery, and nothing's happened on their build. And so they're now working through legal means to make that fixed. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. But a retainer doesn't need to be something big, but it needs to protect all the labor that a builder does in advance before anything's done. That's the only retainer you should have. So if they're asking for a retainer and they've got all that done and the budget secure, you have to ask yourself, what on earth for? I question that. Okay, Parker Nash, building in mountains of Colorado, 35 acres, but minimal flat terrain and very rocky, planning a large septic system for 2 houses plus glamp sites. Would you suggest a drip distribution system? The soils are going to tell you what you can and cannot do. I can't answer that question. Your geotech engineer is going to indicate what your drip distribution can be. And I'm not sure what the drip is for. Is it for landscaping, or is it for the drip of sewer? And if it's a shallow system, there's a lot of questions there I have. But your geotech would answer that if I'm reading that correctly. So let's go to the next question. Good luck in Colorado. I love that state. Denver's not the best though. Josh James, I have 350 feet of 2-foot walls and 10-foot footings. Let me see. If I use 2x10 for footings and 2x12 for walls, I'll have a lot of waste after using some of the headers. Can I use 2x6 on CMU block for walls to save on waste? You could, or the CMU wouldn't be bad. You could use that as well, but that's not going to rot if it's out there in the weather and you have your CMU block walls. You may be able to use them for something else, some other retainage down the road. Lumber, just a quick caveat, absorbs moisture. So the first time you use the concrete form or a piece of lumber as a form, it's going to soak up a lot of that gray matter that's there. And if it didn't warp the first time, then it's really going to be a better form down the road. But the minute you put that new piece of 2x10 or 2x12 and use it for a form, a lot of the times it just goes nuts on you, which is why a lot of concrete subcontractors don't use 2x10s and 2x12s, etc. They actually use LVL material for their forms. It's going to stay rigid and it's going to be in place. So ask yourself, do I want to use 2x10 material or 11 7/8 LVL number or 12-inch LVL or a number 10 LVL with 10-inch with 11 7/8? So ask yourself that question. Some of that lumber could go so bad just by using its forms, you may not be able to use it again. It might be best to just use it in the original framing and get something else for your forms. So anyway, best of luck with that. Golden Bird Brain, Patty. Hey, Patty. What trade typically installs the roof soffit and fascia? Roofing, siding, other. It'd be siding. It's not going to be your roofer. Very few roofers that I know of take on soffit and fascia because they don't want to carry around the scaffolding, which means that a scaffolding is a person who does your siding, and then they can grab the soffit and fascia because they got the same materials there, the same scaffolding there. Roofers don't do that. They'll just want to take care of the roof and leave us alone and we'll go to the next job. Okay. YT, can you tell us more about how you were able to avoid installing a temporary electric service pole during new construction? Good question. That temp pole is going to cost you anywhere from $300 to $800. I had a generator on site and that was $350, but we didn't need to use it because most of my subcontractors have their own power for charging batteries. And it depends on how much work you actually can get done without electricity. But after the footing was poured, I had my conduit put up. The footing was poured, conduit was put inside that footing, and it came up inside the foundation. And then the concrete foundation wall guys came and they put in their foundation. The minute that concrete wall was poured and they pulled the forms, I called my electrician, hey, come up and put a 200 amp service on here. We're going to get perm power. And he put it up here, had it inspected. I had perm power. So from then on, throughout the build, I had permanent power on a site. It depends on whether or not you can pull it off. If it's a frame structure, then you'd want to have your conduit come up. If it's underground, overhead, it's really, really difficult. But underground, it's much easier to bring permanent power to the job site. Have a small wall built, put your 200 amp service on the wall, your meter panel, and have them run a 20 amp circuit down below for a couple of plugs. And then see if you can't pass off perm power inspection. Depends on the city and the county if they're going to allow for it. But if they do, you can save yourself some money on that temporary power. And I would never have temporary power. It's more than 50 feet away because your cords are going to heat up and it's just not going to work and you're going to break your circuit breakers. You want to get it as close to the job site as you can. And right now I have the power on the outside. And when they were doing the power on the inside for rough end, I asked them to put a 20 amp plug inside the meter panel inside the home. Now I've got two sources of power inside the laundry room. I have permanent power and outside as well. So all my finished guys now have room for access for power. So it's logistics and seeing if you can make it work. So think in advance and talk to your electrician and see if you can make it happen. Josh James, I found someone with a concrete line pump that will handle the pump and line with two guys while they finish the surface. With a boom pump, it's the same price, but I'd have to get another helper. Thoughts? Yeah, if you can hire someone, get someone to help you out for that time. Go to the local high school, or even like in my area, we have a tech high school where students are just very, very eager to pick up. And you can say, hey, looking to hire a strong hand, and it would take place in an early morning, maybe on a Saturday morning, hopefully, so they have time off. I've got a nephew I hire, and he goes to a tech high school, and he texts me every Friday, hey, do you have work for me? And I go, yeah, meet me at 12 noon. Or last week, he took off school. His mom approved it, and I took him for the whole day, and it was great to get some work done. So get some extra help. You're not gonna beat yourself up. It'd be great. Michael Lebedinski, I hope I said that right. Building a 24 by 30 ADU with a 2 second floor living space, monolithic slab, center sill plate on slab footing, or align with outside edge. So a center seal plate on slab footing or align with outside edge. You may not, it depends on if that slab is square. If it's perfectly square, then you align it with the outside edge. But if it's not square, you're going to adjust the framing to fit that slab, if that's what I'm hearing you right. Monolithic slab. I don't know what you mean by center seal plate on slab. Oh, I see what you mean. You're not centering the seal plate inside the middle of the slab. You're centering it on the exterior perimeter of the. The seal plate's going to be a little smaller than the actual 2x6 material. So you're going to center that right underneath the 2x6 material. And use the seal. They call it seal. Use that more over the glue. I've seen framers just put a few drops on glue and think it's going to hold. Liquid nails is not the best material. It gets cold and brittle, and it doesn't hold. It's not an elastic material, and it's not that great. It's great glue wood on wood, but I've not had any real confidence with it being used on the slab to hold down that bottom plate. That's why I love the foam, that rigid foam. This is one area where I use that seal plate, that seal, and it could be pink or blue or whatever material, and you can get it for the right width of your wall structure. But put that on and just punch it right over the J bolts, and then put your bottom plate, your treated lumber right on top of that, and you'll be fine. Okay, Sergio, I know you're not a financial advisor, but how much money do you think we should save before we start building? I financed land at $172K, and I'm hoping for a total build to be under $600K. I only have $30K. Okay.
400 to build, and then
You need
is the
to.
land paid off?
What's that?
No.
No, he's financing the land right now. So then what would happen is you go after a construction loan, and then you'd wrap the land into the construction loan, because the lender is not going to let you have a second loan. They would want to secure the land as equity or against the loan. You talk with a bank lender. You're going to need a certain amount down. I can't tell you how much that is. It's going to be relative to each bank. But you're going to want to make sure you take the First Steps course, and then it will tell you the cost to build in your area. And you'll do that. I think it's module number 3, and it will tell you what the cost per square foot is after doing all the formula that's in there and following it religiously at least 3 times. And then it will tell you what you can afford cost per square foot. And then you're going to want to design something with that in mind. And then you're going to try to hit that amount that you can qualify for. So if it's if you need to be under 600K and the land is 172,000, then you're going to be around 400,000 or under to build that home. But I'm not a financial advisor, but any good financial advisor would say, try not to build a home that's more than 28% of your cost of living. So, or your income. So if you add up your income and say 28%, you don't want to really take out anything that would increase that more than 28%.
And it all depends on the lender when we get on here.
Yeah.
It all depends on the lender, right? If you're going to get a construction loan, they're going to tell you how much money you need down to start. And if you already have equity in your land, that will help you. But it all depends on your lender when you should start, because they're going to tell you how much you need to put down to get going. So that's the biggest key. And then the next thing is just save. Save more than you think you need. Like, quit going to Starbucks and whatever. I don't know if you go to Starbucks or anything, but that's my philosophy. Keith has a little bit more fun, but I'm like peanut butter sandwiches and all that kind of stuff. Save. You can never save enough.
Yep. Okay, next one. Josh, a framer told me they can frame my home in 2 weeks, but if I tried to frame the home myself, I'd take a month. Plus, the wood could dry out and warp, and when putting the trusses on, things will be off. Thoughts? They're right. In fact, it's going to take you more than a month. It's going to take you probably 2 months. And the reason why they can probably frame that in 2 weeks is because they have a large crew. Ask him back, how many are on your crew? And if he says 7 or 6 or 8, well, just try to duplicate that yourself. All right. And he's right about the lumber. My pet peeve is my framing getting wet. I don't like to see it happen. I like to see a home get framed quick, sheeted over roof and dried in, and then everything's protected underneath.
Get the shell up.
And so it was that?
Get the shell up and protect it.
Yeah. So it's something I don't mess with. And I know it's tempting to want to try to save in that area, but that's not an area I'd recommend saving. I've been driving by a job site up north here, and they've been framing that house for over 2 months now. And I think the owner's trying to do it. I can already see the lumber starting to disfigure in color, starts to turn gray. I can almost, if I were to walk on the job site, I'm almost certain that I would see a lot of problems, but they're taking way too long. Winter's around the corner. We've got another 2 or 3 weeks of some mild temperatures, and it starts to drop. So it's a nightmare I wouldn't want. I'd rather take on something that I can control with my own time frame rather than try to do that myself. So if it was a small shed, then fine. But if it's not a small shed, that's something I wouldn't mess with. Okay. Hypes. Hi, we haven't seen you in a while. Hype stonks. Hi, Keith. Hope you and your family are doing well. I'm looking forward to getting back from my business trip in Amsterdam this week to get my build moving forward and back on track. Great. Best of luck to all the others in the group that are also in the camp of taking on the Owner Builder Challenge. Great. Carlene, in another new construction home that a builder built, we owe, after 10 years, the drywall and the cathedral ceiling cracked. Is there a way to avoid that in our new home build? It depends on the actual structure and how well it's designed. Cracking does happen. It happens mainly because the framing wasn't really beefy. I like a really beefy frame job. That's just me. Like I just framed a home up north, and we added 1932 sheeting, which is a little thicker. It's almost a half an inch. Actually, it's almost 3/4. It's a little more than a half inch. And it just made a big, huge difference on that framing job. I walked up there with an inspector, and he was quite impressed with how solid the whole roof was. So it's not going to bend and cave. Same thing with the truss system. And a lot of truss manufacturers today are better at handling snow load and other load calculations on a roof. And so when it comes to cracking in the drywall, it's probably a seam or a subcontractor that didn't probably tape it right. Like I've got a small crack on the job I have right now that I just finished. It's a small crack like that. We're talking a 36-foot long I-beam. and that thing is expanding and contracting in the heat, and that's all I've got on that massive. And I had my guys tape it up, making sure they put some tape over it, and it patched it up pretty quick. But you're talking about a massive structure sometimes, making everything come together, and it's usually the cracks on the ceiling that happen. And it's just a matter of, and you can probably go with a thicker drywall if you wanted, if you're super, super stressed about it. But
Keith, wouldn't you say also like compaction is a big thing? The compaction of the soil.
well, the compaction of the soil is going to help make sure that concrete's not going to crack.
Mhm.
Like I've got a build I just finished the foundation on, and the entire basement is probably much bigger than this whole room, twice the size of it. And there's no cracks in the concrete. And why is that? Well, it's 5 inches thick, and I've got rebar 2 feet on center. And I just went that route. Again, this is quality time cost. If cost is a factor, you're going to see it creep up and surface in the area of quality. But if you go after something that you want to maintain quality, it's just a little bit extra, you do that. So you have to realize where you're headed, and if you can spot a weak spot in the possible ceiling issue, ask your framer, can we do some blocking in here, some additional blocking? It would help make the truss a little more rigid, and maybe we can stop some of these issues from happening.
But it's normal too.
It's normal. Some things like happen, like in modular homes, and they came together and they taped to that center seam. Well, the whole home was weak from the get-go because it all came together, and they're just trying to lock it in as best they can. That's the number one area for modular homes, is they would always crack down the center. And so if there's a weak spot and you sense it, ask your framer, is there a way to beef this up to make it stronger? So
This is just from Alex. It's a $1,000 retainer.
I talked to a builder that wanted 1,000. That's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
That's not bad.
Okay, here we go.
So brand new here, took the basic course, sold 2 fix and flips, would like to build from the ground up. Good. You'll love ground up. Welcome on board, Corey. You'll love that. Kelly, it would be nice if there was a forum where we could connect people in our area that are doing the same process.
Okay, we'll work on that.
My wife says she's working on that. So David B, hit the thumbs up button if you like the stream. Yeah, do that. That would be nice. Francis Wong, where can you find good concrete finishers? Good question. I've prepared a 1,500 square foot patio and driveway with gravel, rebar, and forms, but don't know where to find them. In Oakland, California. I'm familiar with that area in Oakland. I lived in there for a little while. You can find them probably at job sites, and looking for a healthy crew that maybe wants to work on a Saturday, if and only if you can get concrete on a Saturday. You can also go to a concrete mixing plants and ask them if they recommend anybody. Supply houses, seeing if they recommend anybody. And then you can just go online and see concrete finishers, concrete companies, and ask them, hey, I've got it all formed. Can you guys come and do this for me? You know, it's just networking. It's just researching out and seeing if you can find somebody. But I think you'll find somebody. Just keep it up and you'll eventually run into somebody. So job sites is the number one for it. I found a concrete guy working on a job across the street from me on another job. Went over, looked at his work. He now does my work. So again, job sites is really a great way of finding people. Bradley, building in Maryland. I was originally planning to dig the foundation and get the foundation walls up this month, but obtaining my loan has delayed that schedule quite a bit. What are your thoughts on pushing my start date back to mid-March when the weather is starting to get decent again? It's possible. You really want to time it so that the framer is not going to have to deal with inclement wet weather. And it's possible in Maryland that you'll deal with some snow or rain or whatnot. It's the wet season, if I'm correct. And that's not going to be any fun. You'll find that in the fall, it's mostly dry throughout the country, mostly. And so you're probably, if you can punch it out and get it done before November and get your framing up before the holidays, then you've got it sealed up and you can get some roof protection. Then guess what? You've got January, February, March in the wintertime to do all your rough inside the building. And then spring comes up and guess what? Your heads and shoulders above where you thought you would be.
Yeah, but
So-
it doesn't look like you can.
It doesn't look like you can, but
Fiscal
for those of you that are thinking about it, I love breaking ground right now, about a month ago. And I'm doing that right now on a job, and I'm breaking ground right now, and I'm going to try to get this thing framed up before Christmas if I can. We'll see
So
what
we are
happens.
different weather than Maryland.
We're different weather than Maryland, but not up where I'm building up. I'm building up north where there's snow. So,
It's how fast you can build that.
yeah. Golden Bird Brain Patty. Do you advise having the siding contractor install soffits and fascia prior to the roof going on? Colorado 8,300 feet. Priority is getting the roof on for weather. Yes. And you can do that. And they'll put the flashing on the drip edge, but just tell them what your siding material is going to be. If it's going to be aluminum, they know exactly what to do. They're going to take that drip edge and they're going to pinch it right up against the fascia board, because the aluminum installers, they can slide that right underneath there and it's not going to be a problem. So get your roof on there, tell them what kind of, if it's hardy board or if it's batten board, or if you're just going to paint your fascia board, let them know. If you're going to paint your fascia board, that's going to be a nightmare. And I wouldn't recommend that because it's a maintenance issue from here on till Sunday. But let them know what you're going to do, and that will tell them, and they'll move forward appropriately. I've done stucco on soffit and fascia, and I had the roof put on, and I wouldn't recommend that because they try to get the stucco in there just nice, and they just make a mess of the drip edge and the flashing. So it's not something I'd recommend. If you can afford the aluminum, then do the aluminum, and they can work around that. JM Keith, the person asking about ICF or ICF, the fast wall block from Oregon is considered an ICF. That fast wall is a great product.
Yeah,
That was something I'd recommend. And I think if I can pull it up here, well, fast wall,
I could try and pick it up. It's okay, Hannah. We're going to talk about it later.
fast wall.
We're going to talk about it later.
Yeah.
We got lots of questions.
Okay. Go with the next question there. Yeah, the fast wall is an eco-friendly building block system. Check it out if I know who this is. Say Spice Dragon, we'd like to get started. Would it be advisable to have a stem wall foundation put in now and let it sit until spring next year? Western Washington, that wouldn't be too bad. You might want to cover the J-bolts from rust over the winter. They're going to get rusty. They're going to sit on top of that. And if you can protect it, and if you can backfill against it, all the better. But even more, you want to make sure that there's drainage away from that. Otherwise, you're going to fill up the interior with just all kinds of water and snow, and it's going to melt. And is your engineer okay with that? And if I were you, I would fill up the interior with pea gravel, maybe 6 inches after the stem wall's poured. Just get it all nice and level. And that way you've got some proper drainage and you're not just going to be a mud bog. But the outside of the home, after 7 days, probably 2 weeks after it's poured, you can backfill against it and have a positive slope away from that. Just a matter of how much moisture content you'll get over the winter. And can that just percolate through the soil, or does it? I did a job up north and terrible soil. We dug the pit, rain and snow came, melted inside the pit, and it froze. All right. And because it wasn't percolating through the ground, I literally had to go in there and scoop up the ice and haul it out of there. And I couldn't get my compaction for several weeks because it wasn't thawing, because the water wasn't percolating through the soil. So these are things you want to watch out for. If you can get that stem wall in just at the right time, put some gravel in there, let it drain and have some positive slope. Always think about water and what it will do to your job site over time. Scott, what kind of insurance is available or needed during the construction process? Example would be a fire when the house is framed with trusses, etc. Well, if it's caught fire during the course of construction and it's the fault of a subcontractor, their insurance would cover it. but you want general liability insurance, which is kind of an umbrella one. Talk to an insurance agent. There's a couple of them on my list in the download section under architects, engineers, and suppliers. It's in that download folder. You'll find some contacts for insurance. And I've picked one or two that are specialists in construction, and they're very familiar with it, with the whole process. And they're my insurance agent. So check them out, especially Summit Insurance. They're the ones that handle a lot of my students. And check them out. He can give you the right information you need. Rich Hilarious. I like that. Got a house for $420K that appraised for $500, and it came with another lot. I'm about to build another house on that lot next year. We'll have to get the lender to do a partial release or refi it. You're going to have to refi it. I've tried that to get a partial release, and it's been a real nightmare because it's like going to the bank and say, hey, you gave me a loan for this, okay, but I'm going to take X out of that as equity that you're using to secure this. Can I do that? They're not going to want to do that. They like their equity. So if you can refinance it, but at the same time of you refinancing it, just before you refinance the next time, you've got to pull it out. And is that a double closing, honey? Or
What?
You have to have that recorded before the second closing. So just as that first loan is paid off, once it's paid off, in that moment in time, you pull that out of that loan, and you have a second closing, but it's pulled out of the original second, if the second loan. I had to deal with that. It's not fun. So if you can do it with this refinance, that's probably the best route, unless the bank is willing to do it. If you've got enough equity in the bank and they're allowed to do it, you ask them. You never know. So Mike Sutton, what is usually less expensive for a perimeter foundation or slab foundation? Perimeter foundation or slab foundation? Well, the perimeter foundation is less expensive because it doesn't have anything interior. It depends on your frost depth. Okay, that's really what it boils down to. And here's something to think about. A lot of you build in colder climates, all right? And a lot of times that's a stem wall. And if you're trying to do a slab on a stem wall, you're dealing with a frost depth issue, and you got to bring all that infill dirt inside the stem wall. It's not fun. I don't like it. I wouldn't recommend it. If you can go right with the slab and do your stem wall in the ground, your frost depth in the ground, then that's preferred. Stem wall is real hard. You're going to deal with steps. The house is going to be set up higher, and that's maybe not something you want. With the slab on grade, you can control your elevations much better with a slab on grade than a stem wall. And so it really, to me, it has to do with what do my elevations look like? And if I use a stem wall, it's going to push my home higher unless I get that footing all the way in the ground on my 36 inches in the ground. But then you have to bring in a lot of fill. I'm not a fan of stem wall, as you can tell. I'd rather go with a full-on basement. By the time I put the stem wall in, I've dug out so much, I'm close to a basement. And I found that to be the case on a build I'm doing up in the mountains. I had a 4-foot crawl space, and everything changed with the county requirements. And so I ended up lifting the home, and now I have a 9-foot crawl space, which is going to be a great movie theater down the road. So these are things you have to weigh. And if you're in a really bad frost depth, guys, you're close to a basement almost anyway. So think about that. Swan Lake builds. What are the advantages and disadvantages of a monolithic pour for foundation and footer? Central Florida. The advantage in Florida is you can't do a basement too well in Florida. You got a water table issue up the wazoo all over especially southern Florida, mid part of Florida. Up near the Panhandle, it's not so much of an issue. But the advantage of a monolithic slab is that most concrete guys know how to pour them, and especially if it's a 2-step. So I for foundation and footer. The disadvantage of a monolithic slab is that it's really hard to move plumbing. Once you've got that bathroom, I'm on a monolithic slab right here, and I got a bathroom right there. If I want to move that bathroom, I got to tear up the floor, cut into the concrete, move it where I want to move it, re-pour the concrete. That's a nightmare. If I want a stem wall, then I've got 3 inches of clearance, and if I want to move the toilet, I go underneath, cut the pipe, move it to where I want to move it, punch it through the floor. I'm done. I can do that in a half day. So that's the disadvantage of a monolithic slab. It's really hard to move stuff. But if you know exactly what you want, it's a faster job typically. If you find the right concrete guys, you can do a nice level slab and it be square. Okay, Josh, my trenches for footings are compacted, and my excavator said he charges $2 a square foot, $700 to dig footings, so I wouldn't have to form them. Is this a good idea, or is this forming better to make surface level? That's cheaper than trying to form it. Don't try to form it. Imagine buying the lumber for all your forms. It's going to be more than triple that cost. The key is that making sure he has the right bucket size, and that when he digs, nothing's going to slough in there. Like if it's a nice clay soil, it's going to be rigid, and you put your rebar in there and you're all ready to rock and roll. And then you pour your footings, and you make sure you get a laser level, and you paint on the side of that footing your 10-inch mark or your 8-inch mark, or however deep that footing needs to be. And you paint that with a laser level, that thing that goes beep, 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 beep. And then you have that all level. So when it's poured, it's really right on, spot on. And just a couple things to look out for there. Your soil, if it's not done soon enough, it's going to start to slough inside your footings, and that's going to be a nightmare. And if you have a lot of rock in your soil, that's going to be a nightmare too. If it's all straight, good soil, nice and clay, compacted, that's the best soil to do a footing in. Sand is the worst. Don't ever try to do a footing in sand. Francis, thanks. What do you make of Trex or other composite decking versus redwood or exotic hardwood? Looking for low maintenance, but worried it will look cheap. I'm not a fan of Trex. It's just particle board inside there waiting to happen. That's going to be a nightmare down the road. Now, there are some higher end products that are wax composites. So it's a particle board that pressed together with wax before they put their surface material on it. And you can take that particle board and stick it in water. It's not going to expand. The wax basically seals everything up. If you find a product like that and it's going to last a long time, fine. But most Trex products are not necessarily that great. And I'm a fan of redwood. It just holds up forever. But it's also more pricey, and it's also very lightweight. It's like balsa wood in some cases. And the redwood isn't what it used to be. There's more cheaper redwood. It's not the deep red. There's more white, which means that it hasn't acquired most of its, I can't remember the product that's in redwood that keeps termites and bugs from eating at it. But the darker the red in the wood itself, the better off you're going to be over time. Cedar's not a bad product either, but that's just very pricey, and it's hard to get a cedar as well as redwood. So it's really a cost thing, how much maintenance. But to be honest with you, I don't like any of them. I'd rather have a solid coat, liquid applied something on the deck. Research tanzanite, just research it. That's a solid deck that's going to last forever. No maintenance at all, period. Just a little more complicated to install. I'm more of a lasting guy. How can I put something on that I'm not going to have to touch, and it's not going to look like garbage in a year? It's going to look great in 10, 20, 30 years. So that's just me. I look for more permanence and lasting quality. Okay. Mike, does stucco paneling look cheap or up close? Stucco paneling, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. Does stucco paneling look cheap or up close? I don't know. I think everything looks cheap up close when you look really, really close. I have not ever considered that. It's something new. Is it? paneling that exists and you just stucco over it? Or is it just a whole product that's paneling that's stuccoed? I don't know.
Let's see, this is some images. I don't know.
You looking for images?
Yeah, I'm trying to, let's see. Thought I could grab my screen, but it doesn't look like it's letting me. Oh, well, sorry. I thought I could grab the screen.
Okay. Next question. Fernando, what is excluded from the initial price per building square foot? i.e. builder is charging so much per square foot, but what are the main things that are included and what is excluded from that building per square foot charge? If a builder comes up to you and says, I will build XYZ for XYZ per square foot, then that's not a builder. They're going after a fixed price. And a fixed price is not a cost plus. A fixed price is they're going to charge you a builder fee and they're going to probably mark up everything inside that and you're not going to see it. You want a cost plus where their fee on top of all the costs to build a home. And that is where you're able to find your cost per square foot with or without the general contractor, with or without the realtor, with or without broker fees, with or without all those things. That's why you need to take the First Steps course. It goes you through the entire formula on how to find that cost per square foot based upon materials, based upon the builder, based upon all of these things. And you can see what you want to pull out and what you can manage on your own. So
Would you say that if a builder did say it was this much price per square foot, that would include the whole house, like the garage and the living space, right? Wouldn't you say?
Well, it depends. In my particular market, we base cost per square foot on livable square feet.
Well, what about a garage then? Because I know that's what we do as a real estate, the square footage that is air conditioned. So the garage is not considered square footage in the home. But if you're building a home that has so much square footage, but you want a 3-car garage, or maybe you want a 4, or maybe you want an RV garage. Like, I guess those are questions you need to ask your builder. Like, if they give you a price per square foot, then like, well, I want RV garage, whatever you want. You have to ask more questions to that builder. But Keith's right. Like, see all your costs.
Yeah, and ask him if that's cost per square foot on conditioned space only, or does that include the garage? And get some clarity there. Josh, does the framer calculate and order the lumber materials, or do I give the plans to a lumber yard and they create the material list? Good question. A really, really, really good framer will do that. And they may charge you $500, $600 to do a cut list for you. But a good lumber yard will do that. The box stores will not do that for you. All right. Only a lumber yard will do that for you. And ask them if they can give you it's called a lumber package, and ask them to give you a lumber package per floor. If it's 2 floors, give me a lumber package for this and a lumber package for that, because I don't want it all delivered at once. And have it sent to you. And then whoever framer you end up picking, say, hey, can you confirm this lumber package? And they'll say, yeah, it's good. However, we're going to need a couple of things here, a couple of things there, which is why in my program, in the budget, I seriously tell you to have additional contingency in framing. And it's all built into my budget. It How to Build Your Own Home, and it's under the self-managed course. And when you see that budget, it's stellar. It's the best budget in the industry right now. It's being used by thousands of students. So do not try to build without using that budget, because there's tricks in that budget that I mastered as a builder that are embedded in that budget. Follow it to a T and you'll be very happy. Okay.
Oh, Laura just gave us a super chat.
Oh, Laura, thank you, Laura. Awesome. I saw a 100-year-old house that still has the original slate roof. What do you think of this type of roof in South Texas? Not good for wind. I do love those roofs. They're great, but they're not the best for wind. You're going to want something that's going to handle some wind, especially South Texas. And that's pricey, and there's not many people who know how to install those. Now, back east in the New England area, it's a very popular thing. You're going to find a lot more people who can install that roof. If you can find somebody local and they can secure it and they can guarantee it against at least 100-mile-an-hour winds sustained, then great. But if you can't, then don't push it. So, Steve Jolly, I know this guy. Do you need a vapor barrier in your area? Would you insulate your slab on grade for Southern Utah? Steve's building a really cool home here locally here. And it depends on the soil, Steve. It depends on if there's alkaline in the soil that could work against the concrete. And the geotech report would help answer that. Now, when you do a proctor, they should do a proctor and an analysis of the soils and ask them if they recommend that. If they do, it's not that much to put a vapor barrier underneath the slab before the slab is poured. So check that. I'm actually researching that. I've got a build that's coming up, and we are probably going to do that because some of the soil has issue. And what people don't know is in our area, we have an alkaline problem, and you can see it eat away at block walls. And typically to stop it, you put vinegar on it and whatnot, but you don't want to have to do that with your slab. You want to make sure that it's going to get protected. So your geotech should help you get some clarity on that, and then ask them. And it's not that much to put it on. We're talking maybe $800 to $1,400 in that range to put it in before they put the rebar. And that'd be a nice protection against any erosion. I know when I was in Vegas building, we had to put plastic around copper because we didn't have PEX at the time. Tells you how old I am, because the alkaline there was so bad, it was eating away at the copper underneath the foundations. And a lot of homes were having problems over the years. So they put it in a sleeve, and that eventually turned into PEX in a sleeve. Before it was PEX in a sleeve, it was PEX in a plastic wrap. And that plastic wrap was supposed to be your defense against corrosion. So we have it much better today than we had it 20 or even 30 or 40 years ago. So every year it gets a little better. Josh, on the dirt forms question, my soil is more sandy and the excavator said it took a ton of water to get compacted right. In that case, should I form it and use the wood after to form the walls? Yes, yes, yes. I actually did a home, or I built the pad for a garage for a good friend of mine, and it was just tough. It was rough. The sand, if you let it dry for like 6 hours, it becomes powdery. But I secured a 98% compaction on it because I kept the whole thing super, super wet. The only way you can make that work if you're in sandy soil is you wet the heck out of it and you compact it and you dig that morning and you pour your footings like minutes later. Otherwise the sand is going to start to slough off and you're going to cost more in your concrete because it's just going to get destroyed. So like at your beach and you build your castle and it starts to dry and then it starts to fall apart on you. That's the problem with sand. You can get the compaction you need if it's wet, but trying to get that form to stay the way it needs in the footing, it's going to be rough. So maybe you can squirt some sugar water on it. That's how they build those castle walls, and they keep them perfect over a period of time. They spray sugar water on it. So it has a rigid crystalline structure on it. Never seen anyone do that. That's an idea. Alex, what is the best soundproofing between walls? That's SoundTech. It's a Rockwell product, SoundTech, and you can put it in between your 2x4 walls, like between a TV room and a master bedroom, a definite must. But I'd actually go thicker. I did that for a client, and we put a 2x8 wall between the master and the living, and they're very, very happy they did that. So something to think about. The extra density would actually help with some sound deadening in that wall. David B., there's a metal roof that is formed to look like slate. Looks pretty cool. Yeah, there's some more metal roofs out there that they're great. But ask them what's the wind gust resilience? How well does it hold up to sustained wind? That's the real defining quality of a roof in my mind.
Alex has a good question.
Will there be a live stream on the 31st? What's the 31st?
October 31st is Halloween, honey.
Oh, no, we're not going to do live chat.
We can talk about all the scary stories of building, but we can dress up, but we're going to probably have trick-or-treaters. So thank you. That's probably a good point.
Yeah.
So maybe we talk about that the week before.
Yeah. We'll
give a thumbs up if you want to talk about all the scary stories.
I will tell you some nightmares that just put stress in me, probably aced me a little bit. But yeah, let's do scary stories the week before Thanksgiving, Halloween, but we will not do live chat on that Halloween.
31st. Thank you.
I've got a little granddaughter and I want to maybe go see her. So any other questions?
Yes, there's one more.
One more question. Almost time's up.
Yep, time's up.
What do you exclude from your price per square for building? What do you exclude? Oh, if you're trying to figure it out, take the First Steps course. It's all in there. It's too long to answer, but it's a formula, and I can't go through the formula, but it's in the third module in the First Steps course. Take that, and I promise you, it will be very, very informative, and you'll have the formula that you can do over and over again to really lock in that good variable that you're looking for. So, anyway, time's up, right? All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Go to howtobuildyourownhome.com. Take the First Steps course, self-managed course.
Where to find the course?
And
the course is
at howtobuildyourownhome.com.
howtobuildyourownhome.com.
For that link right there, and click on the courses page. And I also offer consulting. I've got a consulting here coming up here in a few minutes where I go over plans. I go over all your engineering. We talk about stuff, your markets, things, worries, fears, all that. That's also available if anyone wants a really long format consult. And that's been great for a lot of people. I've been able to help. I'm excited, and I'm happy to do that. So check that out if you're interested as well. So until then, we'll see you guys next week.
And I am setting up Discord. I've got it started. I just haven't finished. So I will get that going for students.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. See you guys next week.